I wasn't supposed to be home until Saturday night. The trade show in Salt Lake had wrapped earlier than expected, and I figured I'd surprise Rachel with an early return. Thought it might earn me a smile, maybe even one of those hugs she used to give me. Tight and real, like she meant it. Instead, the moment I opened the front door, I froze. A scent I didn't recognize hit me. Sweet, powdery, too floral. Definitely not Rachel's usual lavender-vanilla combo. My eyes dropped to the coat rack. A long charcoal gray trench hung beside her winter parka. It wasn't mine. Neither was the pair of scuffed brown dress shoes on the mat. The house was quiet, but not the peaceful kind. More like the kind of silence that hums with tension, like it's trying to hold its breath. I didn't call out her name. I just stood there, listening. Then the bathroom door opened down the hall. Rachel stepped out in a form-fitting emerald dress. One I'd never seen before. Her makeup was perfect. Red lipstick, smoky eyes, earrings that dangled just enough to catch the light. She jumped a little when she saw me. "Oh," she said, forcing a laugh. "You're back early." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She adjusted one of her earrings and glanced past me, like she was expecting someone else to walk in behind me, or was hoping someone wouldn't. "Well," she said, shrugging as she walked past. "Once a month is plenty for me." I didn't reply. I didn't even blink. But right then, right in that exact moment, I decided that once a month would be all she got from me too. I walked into the garage, past the dusty shelves and the half-finished fishing rod rack I'd been meaning to hang. I closed the door behind me, picked up my socket wrench, and stood there, alone with the soft click of metal on metal. Planning. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't even lie down. I just sat at the kitchen table, staring at the digital clock on the microwave as the hours dragged past midnight. 12 o'clock. 1:16. 3:42. I watched the minutes tick by while the whole house stayed dark and quiet, except for Rachel's heels tapping on the hardwood floor upstairs as she walked back and forth, getting ready for something she hadn't invited me to. She left around 7 in the morning, didn't say where, didn't even offer an excuse. I waited until I heard the garage door close behind her. Then I got up and walked into the bedroom. And that's when the spiral started. See, when you're in love with someone, your brain works overtime to protect that idea. It'll bend logic, bury red flags, reframe gut instincts as insecurity or paranoia. And I had been a gold medalist at making excuses for Rachel. But now every memory started clicking into place like puzzle pieces I'd been too blind or too trusting to see for what they were. There was the time, for months ago, when she canceled our anniversary dinner. Said her client dinner ran late and she had to stay overnight at a hotel in Denver. I believed her. Even told her it was okay, that business came first. I remembered the night she came home smelling like hotel shampoo and called me by the wrong name. Just a slip of the tongue, she said. I joked about it at the time. Now the joke was on me. There were the new clothes, tight-fitting designer brands, tags I'd never seen on our credit card bill. She started keeping her phone on silent, face down, even in the middle of dinner. Sometimes I'd walk into the room and she'd swipe something off the screen before locking it. When I asked, she'd say it was a client's confidential info. I had no reason not to trust her. Now every one of those reasons looked like smoke hiding the fire. Her social media told a story too, one I hadn't bothered to read between the lines. She used to post pictures of us. Nothing over the top, but enough to let people know we were in it together. Now her feed was all abstract quotes in cursive font and pictures of cocktails by candlelight. She remembered who she was and the game changed. Evolve so hard they have to get to know you again. Phrases that sounded like inspiration on the surface, but underneath, they were a goodbye written in pretty language. I started clicking back through months of posts, trying to pinpoint the shift. It wasn't sudden. More like erosion, a slow wearing away of something once solid. And then I remembered the late-night calls. First, it was just business. That's what she told me. Clients on the West Coast, she'd said. It's just part of the job. But I started thinking about how her tone would change when I entered the room mid-conversation, how her voice would drop, how she'd step into the pantry or close her laptop in a hurry, and how, when I asked who she was talking to, she'd always say something vague, Just work. But work doesn't usually make you smile like that. It was the smile I couldn't stop thinking about. Not the one she gave me. That one had been fading for months. No, it was the one I saw in the mirror on my face when I realized I'd been the only one holding onto this marriage with both hands. It's a weird kind of heartbreak when you stop asking, what did I do wrong, and start realizing you did everything right, but it still wasn't enough. That's when I went into the closet. I wasn't looking for evidence. I just needed something. Proof that we used to be happy, maybe. Or maybe I was hoping to find a reason. Something that would make sense of the way Rachel had slowly become a stranger in our own home. But what I found were receipts. Literally. Tucked inside the pocket of her old coat, I found a folded receipt from a hotel bar. 2 drinks. 2 entrees. A note written on the back in handwriting that wasn't mine. You looked stunning tonight. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at it like it was a confession. And just like that, I remembered something else. A few weeks earlier, she'd come home late and her excuse had been almost laughable. I got caught in traffic after a networking event. But we lived 20 minutes from downtown. It would have had to be a traffic apocalypse to explain a 4-hour gap. The coat she wore that night was the same one I found the receipt in. I started pulling at threads after that. Checking pockets. Looking under the seats in her car. Digging through our shared calendar. She'd logged Pilates on days I knew she'd barely made it home in time for dinner. I checked with her gym, they hadn't seen her in 2 months. And then there was the credit card charge for a boutique perfume store she'd never mentioned. I looked it up. The scent matched the one I'd smelled when I walked through the door yesterday. Not hers. Not mine. Not us. And the part that gutted me the most? She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. The night before, when she stepped out of the bathroom in that emerald dress, the look on her face wasn't guilt. It was annoyance. Like I was the one who had ruined something. She wasn't sorry she'd gotten caught. She was irritated that I had showed up early. That's the moment it all crystallized. She wasn't having a lapse in judgment. This wasn't a fling or a drunken mistake or an emotional spiral. It was deliberate. It was methodical. And I had been asleep at the wheel. After that, I stopped trying to interpret signs and started collecting them. I backed up her texts and calendar. I checked our shared laptop for anything she hadn't cleared. I set up a secure folder on my cloud drive and dropped everything into it, **, TS, receipts, even the quote posts she liked. This wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. This was documentation. By dawn, I'd written a list titled Things I Know for Sure. She's seeing someone. Probably has been for months. She's lying about her schedule, her finances, and her feelings. She doesn't think I'm paying attention. She's wrong. I closed the laptop, pushed my chair back from the table, and looked around the house. The house I built. The life I'd made room for her in. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a crime scene. And the worst part was I wasn't even mad. Not really. Just numb. The kind of numb that comes when the truth finally breaks through all your defenses and leaves nothing behind but quiet resolve. I got up, walked into the garage again, and looked at my workbench. I didn't need revenge. I needed a plan. The morning after Rachel left in her emerald dress, I stood in the laundry room holding someone else's shirt. It was neatly folded on top of our dryer. Light blue. Slim fit. Definitely not mine. There was cologne on it, spicy, musky. Not my kind, not hers either. Not something you'd wear if you wanted to go unnoticed. That shirt sat there like it owned the place. Like it had a right to be part of our lives. And maybe in a twisted way it did. Whoever it belonged to had clearly been around long enough to stop hiding. I held it up by the shoulders, studying the tag. European brand. Something niche. The sort of thing you don't stumble across at the mall. Which told me all I needed to know: this guy wasn't an accident. He wasn't a one-night mistake. He was curated, chosen. And he was comfortable enough to leave his clothes behind. I wanted to throw it in the trash. Instead, I placed it back exactly where I'd found it. Evidence. I walked into the living room, sat down at the kitchen island, and opened our shared laptop. Rachel used it more than I did these days. Her tablet was for quick texts and emails, but the laptop was where she logged inventory for the boutique, paid bills, managed travel receipts. I typed her usual password. It worked. She hadn't changed it. Part of me thought she would have by now. Either she still underestimated me or she'd gotten cocky. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew what I needed to feel when I found it: certainty. It didn't take long. There, under a folder called Client Travel, was a PDF confirmation for a weekend hotel reservation. 2 guests. A suite. Room service included. The date? The same weekend she told me she'd be staying with her sister for a wellness retreat. I clicked through our shared calendar. That Saturday had a block marked Family Time Purple Heart dot. The kind of cover you only use when you're hoping no one looks too closely. It felt surreal. This wasn't speculative anymore. I had names, timestamps, transactions. I clicked into her browser history. Recent search, how to remove shared calendar entries without notifying partner. Another one, how to disable location sharing from iCloud. It was all there, like she'd written a manual on how to disappear from someone's life without actually leaving. I didn't yell. Didn't curse. I just sat still, hands on the keyboard, staring at the screen like it was a storybook about someone else's collapse. But the real punch to the gut? The tablet? I hadn't planned on going through it. But after the shirt, the receipts, the browser history, I figured I'd be a fool not to. She always kept it in the living room, usually buried beneath design catalogs and unopened mail. I powered it on. Her Face ID wasn't set up, but her birthday unlocked it. Still the same password. No two-factor, no second guess. I synced it with my cloud storage before I even opened a single message. And then I found it. A group chat between her and a contact saved only as J. The latest message. Everything's moving according to plan. Should be clean by end of Q2. He's still in the dark. I read it 5 times, hoping the words would change. They didn't. He's still in the dark. That's what I was to them. Not even a person. Just an obstacle. An inconvenience to be managed. Another message sent a few weeks earlier. Been redirecting extra income into the Tahoe account. We'll update the numbers soon. Boutique should be self-sustaining by fall. And one more, just to make sure this wasn't some elaborate misunderstanding. He's way too trusting. Makes it easier to shift things without questions. Can't believe how smooth this is going. That one made my stomach turn. This wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't an affair of the heart. This was logistics. An operation. I'd been turned into a liability in a life I helped build from the ground up. I scrolled further. A message buried in the archive from almost 6 months ago. Once the business is stable, I'll ease out. I just need him to stay put a little longer. I leaned back in my chair, feeling like the air had been pulled out of the room. It had been 6 months since I offered to invest in her boutique full-time. 6 months since I took a step back from the business I founded to give her sh*t at building her dream. I thought I was being a good husband. Turns out I was being phased out. I didn't move for a long time after that. There's a moment in every betrayal when the emotion burns out and is replaced by something colder. Not hate. Not vengeance. Just clarity. That's what settled in. The evidence was airtight. She wasn't just done with me, she was prepping for a life without me. She'd already started laying the bricks. The boutique's lease? Signed under her name. The supplier accounts? Transferred gradually over the last year. A few of them were once under my company's umbrella. Not anymore. I opened our joint bank account and combed through the last 3 months of transfers. That's when I noticed a string of scheduled transactions, small amounts, but frequent, like someone trying not to trip alarms. They were labeled miscellaneous marketing and consulting. Every single one of them went to a checking account I didn't recognize. I clicked View Details. The account name was a trust registered in Nevada under a shell company. And just like that, I realized something even darker. This wasn't just about someone else. She was trying to disappear with my money. All that trust, all that faith, all those nights I'd spent encouraging her, believing in her, she'd been using me as a temporary bridge. A financial stepping stone. And once the boutique could stand on its own, she'd cut me loose. Neatly. Quietly. With a smile and a lawyer. I wasn't going to let that happen. But I also wasn't going to lose my head. That night, I walked into the garage again. Not to fix anything. Just to sit. There's something sacred about that space. My workbench. The smell of sawdust. The fishing rods stacked in the corner. My father's old toolbox, still scratched and rusted in places he'd sworn he'd fix someday. It reminded me of who I was before Rachel. Before I got so wrapped up in building someone else's dream. Before I lost track of my own. I sat on the concrete floor and stared at my notes, pages I'd printed from her tablet, receipts, *TS emails. I wasn't imagining things. And I wasn't crazy. That truth, though cold and brutal, gave me strength. I didn't need to confront her yet. That time would come. Right now, I needed to be smarter than her. I stood up and went back inside. Tomorrow, I'd call Ryan, my oldest friend and now one of the best family law attorneys in the state. But tonight I'd sleep. For the first time in weeks, I wouldn't be lying awake wondering if I was overthinking. I had facts now. I had proof. And soon, I'd have a plan that didn't involve begging for loyalty from someone who'd already sold me out. The next morning, I called Ryan. We hadn't talked in a while. He'd moved down to Denver a few years back, got married, started a firm that specialized in family law and asset protection. But the second he picked up and heard my voice, I could tell he knew something was wrong. "Logan," he said. "Man, it's been a minute. Everything good?" "No," I said quietly. "I need your help. And I need you to clear the rest of your afternoon." 2 hours later, I was in his office with a manila folder on the table between us and the kind of expression that doesn't leave room for small talk. He didn't ask pointless questions. He didn't offer sympathy. He just opened the folder, started flipping through the documents, and nodded slowly as he pieced it all together. "Is this everything?" he asked. "For now," I said. "There's more." I backed up her devices. "I have text messages, calendar entries, receipts. The boutique has its own books, but I suspect she's running some creative accounting through our joint business expenses too." Ryan tapped his pen against the corner of the table. "You're not crazy. This is deliberate. The way she staged the finances, it's methodical. Structured. She's building a financial wall, and you're the one paying for the bricks." I leaned back in my chair, arms folded. I figured. That's why I'm not here for therapy. I'm here for a plan. Ryan nodded once. "Good. Because I've got one." What followed was a crash course in protecting myself, not just emotionally, but legally and financially. Ryan walked me through the prenuptial agreement Rachel and I signed before our wedding, back when I was still running my business out of a converted storage shed and selling gear at local boat shows. At the time, it was a formality. Rachel didn't even question it. She thought it made sense. "It's your baby," she'd said with a smile. "I'd never take something you built before me." Those words echoed now like a cruel joke. But the good news? That prenup had teeth. According to Ryan, as long as I could prove the fishing gear business had remained separate, no commingled funds, no joint ownership additions, I'd be able to keep it. The house, however, was marital. So were most of our joint investments. But the boutique? That was where things got interesting. Rachel had started it with her own savings, but that savings had been replenished repeatedly from our shared account. Multiple times. Small amounts, just below the threshold where I'd notice. And if we could show she was misusing company funds or funneling assets behind my back, we could reclassify the boutique as a disputed marital asset, especially if fraud or misappropriation was involved. "Lock everything down," Ryan said, sliding a checklist across the desk. "Bank access. Cloud storage. Admin rights to any online platforms your business uses. Change passwords. Remove shared devices. Freeze unnecessary accounts. You don't confront her yet, not until we've secured your position. She's already playing chess. Don't play checkers." That night, I followed his advice to the letter. I locked down the admin panel on our e-commerce site, changed the email on file, updated passwords for the web hosting, the payroll service, even the social media logins she used to tag the business in behind-the-scenes photos. I revoked her email access and updated the security questions. No more, "What's our first vacation spot?" or "What's Logan's favorite sandwich?" Everything she once knew about me was now a liability. Next, I opened a new business account at a different bank under the LLC I'd been quietly forming for a side project. Something I'd been toying with for months, a gear line designed for colder climates, better suited for Canadian exports. It hadn't launched yet, but I'd filed the paperwork, secured the name, and now it was the perfect pivot point. This was going to be my exit ramp. Once the accounts were in place, I called in a cybersecurity specialist. I didn't want to leave anything to chance. If Rachel was tech-savvy enough to scrub shared calendars and reroute payments, she could also be smart enough to cover her digital tracks. I needed someone who could see what I couldn't. The guy came highly recommended from a friend in the tech industry. His name was Miles. Ex-military, quiet, sharp-eyed, with the kind of presence that made you sit up straighter without knowing why. "Give me 48 hours, he said after I handed him a flash drive with Rachel's messages and credentials. "I'll let you know what's under the hood." He was back in 24. I met him at a coffee shop 2 towns over. "Neutral territory." "She's been busy," he said, opening a laptop and spinning it toward me. What I saw made my stomach drop. Transfers to an account in someone else's name, same pattern I'd noticed earlier, but deeper. She was routing payments through a dummy consulting firm, which Miles traced to an offshore account. There were vendor invoices for services that didn't exist. Marketing spends that didn't match any campaign I'd ever seen. The worst part? She'd used my business license to validate the purchases. "I can't say this with full certainty yet," Miles said, "but it looks like she's setting up a parallel entity. Probably hoping to siphon clients or assets into it once she exits clean." My mouth went dry. "She's stealing from me." "More than that," he said. She's rebranding your business before you even know you've been replaced. I sat back, the hum of the espresso machine behind me doing nothing to muffle the blood rush in my ears. This wasn't betrayal anymore. It was embezzlement. And the woman I'd once stood beside at an altar vowing to protect had spent the last year preparing to erase me from the equation entirely. I forwarded everything to Ryan that night. Every log, every file, every shady invoice. He called me the next morning. "I'm filing a financial restraining order," he said. "We'll freeze assets until we can sort out what's been touched. In the meantime, we need to prep for the possibility she's not acting alone." "What do you mean?" "I mean, if this guy she's been seeing is involved and if he has any hand in the boutique's finances, we're looking at conspiracy. Maybe more. Especially if merchandise has been moved under a separate brand." I didn't respond right away. Because suddenly, that shirt in the laundry room, the one that reeked of entitlement and cologne, felt like more than just a carelessly left-behind clue. It felt like a calling card. That's when I started noticing patterns I'd missed before. Like how she always referred to her business consultant, a guy she insisted had helped her tighten inventory. I'd never met him. Never saw an invoice. But his name popped up a lot. Usually right before she made an unexpected return or had a new strategy for expanding her brand. That night, I revisited the receipts Miles had pulled from her email. And there it was, a recurring payment labeled BC Services. A consulting fee. I clicked into one. It was registered to an LLC with an address in California. No website, no phone number, just a P.O. box and a generic email. I didn't need to connect all the dots. The picture was already clear. Rachel wasn't planning to leave me. She was planning to erase me. 3 days after Miles confirmed Rachel was quietly rebranding and rerouting merchandise, I came home to a plain white envelope on my doorstep. No return address. No postage. Just my name in neat handwriting across the front, Logan, in blue ink. I didn't open it right away. I stood there for a minute, keys still in one hand, staring at it like it might detonate. There was a heaviness to it, like it carried more than paper inside. A weight that wasn't physical but emotional, like whoever had left it knew exactly what kind of damage it was meant to cause. I stepped inside, locked the door, and sat at the dining table without taking off my jacket. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I broke the seal. Inside was a flash drive and a single typed note. "This isn't just about you. She's dragging down more people than you realize. The guy she's working with? He's not who she says he is. He's already selling under a different name. Watch the video. Then do what you have to do." No signature. No clues. Nothing else. I stared at the flash drive like it might burn through the table. Then I got up, plugged it into my laptop, and clicked on the only file inside. The footage was grainy, taken from what looked like a ceiling-mounted security camera. The angle faced the back office of the boutique, Rachel's supposed sanctuary, the place I wasn't allowed to clutter with fishing gear paperwork. She was there. So was a man I recognized vaguely from an old Instagram post of hers, captioned something like #mentorvibes, #buildingbrands. He was tall, mid-40s maybe, well-dressed in that effortless, I don't need to impress you but still do kind of way. She always called him her business consultant. Now there he was, sitting casually at her desk, flipping through receipts while Rachel stood beside him, arms crossed, nodding as he spoke. There was no audio, but I didn't need it. The screen split occasionally, jumping between different times. In one, he pointed at her laptop, then back at a ledger she handed him. In another, she opened a safe under the counter, pulled out a stack of inventory sheets, and handed them to him. His posture was relaxed, like someone walking through a well-rehearsed routine. The final clip was the one that cemented everything. It was nighttime, late, judging by how dark it was through the back window. Rachel and the man stood beside a stack of boxes marked for delivery. He pulled out his phone, showed her something, and she nodded. Then they both laughed. Not a casual laugh. One of those shared secret laughs. The kind you let out when you know something's working. He opened one of the boxes and pulled out a branded item, Rachel's logo. She took it from him, peeled off the label, and replaced it with another one. Different name. Different brand. Same product. The screen froze on that frame for a moment before cutting to black. I sat there motionless. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It wasn't just infidelity or even financial deceit. It was fraud. Rachel and this guy, whoever he really was, had been stealing inventory, relabeling it, and reselling it under a completely separate identity. Probably pocketing the profits. Probably hiding the paper trail. That's why the boutique's numbers never quite matched what she told me. Why the supplier invoices always looked bloated. Why she'd started referring to new consultants and brand strategists who I never met. I reopened the envelope and looked again at the note. She's dragging down more people than you realize. Whoever sent this wasn't just trying to help me. They were trying to protect themselves too. I called Ryan immediately. When I told him what I'd found, he didn't even hesitate. Send me the video, he said. And get ready. Because this isn't just a marital issue anymore. This is criminal. 2 days later, Ryan brought in a forensic accountant. A woman named Denise. Sharp, direct, dressed like she was always either leaving or entering a courtroom. She went through everything at Rachel's boutique records, vendor contracts, expense reports, and confirmed it within hours. The numbers were cooked. The margins were off. Some orders were inflated, some fabricated. Inventory that was supposedly sold had no shipping data to match. And the transactions? Several led back to the same P.O. box as the dummy LLC Miles had found earlier. You're looking at coordinated asset diversion, Denise said. And if this guy is managing a shadow brand on top of it, that's intellectual property theft. Ryan folded his arms and nodded slowly. They're running a shell resale operation. Probably flipping your designs under a new brand. You'd be amazed how often this happens. I wasn't amazed. I was furious. But more than that, I was done being played. We filed for a financial audit the same week. A formal request supported by enough evidence to justify a freeze on boutique-related assets and a temporary hold on all outgoing funds pending investigation. Rachel didn't see it coming. That Friday, she walked through the front door with 2 cups of coffee and that breezy, practiced smile she always wore when she thought she was 5 steps ahead. She was dressed in one of those carefully curated, effortless outfits, jeans, blazer, heels just tall enough to look expensive but not attention-seeking. She set a coffee in front of me like it meant something. I got your favorite, she said. I didn't touch it. Busy day? She asked, sipping hers without missing a beat. Productive, I said. You'll probably hear from your accountant soon. Her head tilted. Why would I? Because the boutique's numbers are being audited. That froze her. For a full 3 seconds, she didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Excuse me. You heard me. I stood, walked over to the kitchen drawer and pulled out a folder. Set it gently on the table. Inside, *TS, logs, invoices, the flash drive, copies of every document I'd forwarded to Ryan. I know, I said simply. She didn't reach for the folder. She didn't even look at it. Instead, she sat down slowly, setting her coffee aside like she suddenly didn't trust what was in it. You went through my things. No, I said. I followed the paper trail you left behind. You weren't careful. Or maybe you just didn't think I'd notice. She opened her mouth, closed it again, and stared at the folder. You're being dramatic, she said finally. That's not what the lawyer said, I replied. Or the cybersecurity guy. Or the forensic accountant. Her jaw tightened. I watched the gears turning behind her eyes. She wasn't searching for remorse. She was recalculating. Strategizing. Wondering what cards she still had left. You have no idea what you're doing, she said, her voice low and even. On the contrary, I said. For the first time in a long time, I know exactly what I'm doing. Her eyes flicked to the hallway. I don't know if she thought she could walk away from it or call someone for backup. But before she could move, I added, There's video. Now she looked at me. What video? Security footage. You. Him. Inventory swapping. It's all documented. Don't worry, I didn't leak it. Yet. I watched her deflate, not all at once, but in stages. Shoulders first. Then her breath. Then her eyes. That's when it hit her. This wasn't a negotiation. This was exposure. She had been running a con in high heels and filtered Instagram captions. And now the floor was cracking underneath her. For the first time in months, she didn't have anything to say. And for the first time in months, I didn't need her to say anything that I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I simply handed her a clean settlement packet Ryan and I had drafted. She'd keep the apartment she loved so much. One lump payment. In return, I'd keep the business, the branding, and the right to walk away without her dragging my name through the dirt. She didn't even reach for the papers. She just stared, jaw tight, trying to figure out how everything slipped from her grasp. You can fight this, I said. But I wouldn't. Not with what I have. Take the offer. She swallowed hard. You don't have to do this. But I do, I replied. Because the thing she'd never seen coming was that the man she underestimated was no longer waiting for answers. He was delivering consequences. That night, she packed a bag and left. No tears. No final plea. Just silence. The Rachel I'd known, the one I proposed to, built with, trusted, had been gone for a long time. And this woman, this planner, this fraud, she didn't deserve a war. She deserved to be cut out cleanly. I changed every lock, every password, and every name on every asset. And when the official separation papers were signed and filed, I walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than I had in years. The damage was done. But so was I, with her, with what we were, and with what she tried to become at my expense. 1 year later, I stood on the shore of Flathead Lake in Montana, coffee in hand, the early morning mist curling off the water like a secret. I'd bought the place outright, built a new office on the back side of the property. My company, mine alone now, was thriving. New orders, international demand, real growth. Jill, who'd quietly left Rachel's boutique months earlier, was now running customer ops. Turns out, she'd seen more than she ever said, and chose honesty over complicity. I gave her a chance. She never let me down. Rachel, last I heard, her new boutique in California shut down within 5 months. Lawsuits, poor management, the consultant vanished. No one bailed her out this time, but I didn't watch it unfold. I didn't dig. That story was hers now. Mine was here. Peaceful mornings, honest work, a slow rebuild on my own terms. No shadows, no lies, no one chipping away at the edges of my life. Just quiet, just clarity, just freedom.